So before we launched Aera, with my friend and co-founder Sharik, I remember sitting in London in a hotel and chatting with my good friend Ray Wang from Constellation Research. I was talking about this crazy, ambitious vision, and Ray was already talking about ambient orchestration. I had no idea what he meant, but it sounded very smart. So we decided to launch Aera officially at this event 7 years back. So today I'm really, really pleased to discuss our progress and the state of the market with my good friend Ray Wang. Ray, welcome.
All right, Ray Wang is with us. He's our tech guy.
We want to bring in Constellation Research Principal Analyst and Founder, Ray Wang. Ray, it's great to see you here, so lots to unpack.
Tech, we can bring in Ray Wang, founder of the tech advisory firm Constellation Research.
Ray Wang is with us.
Ray, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love New York.
Awesome video, first of all. This is a cool video about Ray. I've impiled a lot in the last 5 minutes. What do you think of what you just heard?
No, a lot of our clients are in the middle of this, and what they're trying to do is make sense of their data. The data is sitting all over the place, and they haven't been able to pull it together. And that's why a lot of their AI initiatives haven't succeeded, right? And they're like focused on AI when the real thing is decisions. And you're like, why are you focused on AI? What do you really want for the outcome? And everybody's like, oh, no, I'm trying to get AI to work. I'm like, well, what do you want your AI to do? And that's been the issue. And so you got all the IT folks saying, I want AI to work. And all the business folks are like, for what? And so it's this interesting tension that we keep seeing. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's great. We just went right there, diving in right there. So that's awesome. So they want AI, they don't know what. You need to focus on decision. I just mentioned your conference last week in beautiful Monterey. What mega trends are you seeing right now? Let's unpile the comment you just made in AI and tech. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so it starts out, we're futurist research firms. We look at Horizon 2, Horizon 3, and then we bring it back so it's useful, right? That's the most important piece. And so the first part is exponential efficiency. If you're not 10x better or 1/10 the cost, nothing is being considered. And that is just the beginning. And that really started when a couple tech companies in the Valley decided that, you know, we don't need all these people and we're not getting a lot of productivity. And they started the cutting and everybody followed suit. And that was for code development. And that's going on everywhere, whether it's procurement or marketing or sales or operations. People are really looking for that efficiency. And then the whole AI conversation got into the bit, and everybody thought, okay, there's a way to do this AI arbitrage. Now, the reality is there are a lot of things you can use AI for, and you can get to decision automation with, but there's always this element of humans. And the question you have to ask in AI arbitrage is when and where do you insert the human? Not where do you automate. It's when and where you insert the human suddenly becomes the design point. Because back to your point in terms of that chart you were showing earlier, right? There's a lot of things that require a human in the loop. But there's also a lot of things that you can automate to make that decisioning much better.
So you're shifting the conversation, saying it's where do you insert the human, not where do you leverage AI. You're kind of flipping the dialogue.
We think that's a very important design point. A lot of people forget that. And then margin compression is here. And since we're in New York, I'm going to use a very New York example. How many people in the audience, I know you're supposed to do this on live TV, but how many people in the audience have heard of UPI in India, a payment gateway? There's this payment gateway that costs 0.1, really 0 cents to 0.1 cents to actually do a transaction. Now, 1.2 billion people operating on that versus SWIFT, which is $25, ACH, which is $15, that is margin compression. If the rest of the world is doing peer-to-peer payments on that, what's going to happen? That margin compression completely got squashed. And that's where we're seeing the market. And then the last piece is we actually think that everybody will have their own agent going forward, and it's going to get even more interesting. So we'll have our own agents. They're not necessarily going to look like this, but you get the idea. With the skills that you want them to have, with the programming of those skills, that's what's going to drive that future.
So everybody's going to have their own agent. This kind of echoing what I was thinking earlier is the ability to have their own agent that works with you, that works for you, that learns with you.
But you can't do that unless you have a skills foundation.
Exactly.
A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to put this agent to do it. And then you end up with robotic process automation, which was very rigid and not very smart, right? You want something that's richer than that.
Yeah, you don't want Clippy.
We don't want Clippy. We don't want Clippy. No one wanted it the first time. Yeah.
So there's a lot of debate right now between Salesforce and Microsoft around Clippy. I'm sure you've been following all of that little battle
there,
rhetoric going on there. Okay, let's move on. So you mentioned everybody wants AI. We see that everywhere, read that everywhere. We have a very interesting view of how that's going to evolve and some of the consequences that it's going to create in the next few years. So I'd love you to take us through that framework.
Yeah, so what happened last year was everybody was like, let's go do AI. And suddenly you had budget for AI. And then you realize you didn't have budget for AI because it got robbed out of everything else, right? Anybody have that situation? It's like, oh, you got budget for AI. And by the way, you can't do that and that. Or you should do all these things with the same budget. And so we started with FOMO POC, which is basically, let's all do something. Then this year we got budgets, and we realized where they got stolen from. And you're like, great, thank you. But we're about to get to a point where we're going to get to data scarcity. And what I mean by data scarcity is we're going to run out of all useful data to get to an accuracy level. So 85% accuracy, I mean, in customer experience isn't too bad. I might get an extra burger, someone might drop a call, that's all right. 85% accuracy in supply chain, how many millions are you losing a minute? That's crazy. What about 85% accuracy in finance? Anybody want to go to jail? Right? So these are things that we start to realize, like, where am I going to get the data? And so we actually believe in the future, you're going to take things like Aera and you're going to build data collectives against them. You're going to pull data from your suppliers, your partners, you're going to bring them back in, you're going to make those decisions. And we think data collectives are going to take us out of the data dark ages, right, where there's nothing good publicly available on the internet other than Taylor Swift ads, Capital One offers, and I don't know, something else, maybe NVIDIA SEO, right? So we're in a situation, nothing is good on the publicly available webs. And so we've got to figure out how to get around that.
You brought Taylor Swift in the conference. I'm glad you did.
I have to. It's for your SEO.
That's one. So then you talk about the dark ages. What is that?
Well, the dark ages is when there's no data on the web. We can't do anything with it. You're not going to pull information insights. It's going to sit within your systems. Your generated information and insights, all those interactions in the graph, that's where the value is. Your companies are going to be valued by what information and insights can be generated in your business graph as much as your revenue projections going forward.
So I mentioned our chat in London. That was a long time ago, 2016.
Bulgari
and
Hotel.
I was sharing the thoughts, and you were saying, that's not crazy. You should go do it. So we did, and here we are, and I'm glad we did. So thanks for that advice back then. But you just this morning already talked about AI for decision, and this is something when we brought up the concept of decision automation, decision intelligence, that didn't really exist. It was initially people thought we were a bit crazy because it seemed impossible to do, but we thought there was a way to actually do it. So when you talk to your clients about specifically DI, decision intelligence, what are you telling them? What advice are you giving them? How should they get started? Because they're coming to you for that kind of advice. So it's given now decision intelligence they need to do, but how do they do it?
Yeah, I think it's really important. What we have to think about is a concept called decision velocity. You and I are making snap decisions. That's great. It takes us a few seconds. But machines are making millions of decisions per second. And the companies that actually can make decisions more quickly are the ones that are going to win. And it really started out with asking the right business questions. You did that with analytics. Everybody had great dashboards, insights, but it was kind of static. And then what we realized is we got to keep making this information useful. So we build dynamic feedback loops and signal intelligence, and we're starting to pull from different systems, pulling from different partners, suppliers within the value chain. But then at some point we realized we can't keep doing this manually, and that's where the automation came into place, where we actually automate precision decisions. We're constantly trying to refine that information and insight. Well, these weren't static systems. Most transactional systems were not built to handle this. And humans couldn't handle the scale of dynamic systems. And so the goal here is really to figure out how do we improve these decisions and actually get to the level of precision with decision velocity. And that's where decision intelligence and decision automation come into play.
And you and I have been exchanging on those frameworks over the years. I like the one that we're going to show on the slide in a second. But walk us through it, actually, because I think it's very helpful framework to think about where do you insert the human in the process versus the other way around.
Well, we'll start with this simple test, and then we'll show you actually something similar to the slide you were showing earlier with the graph as to when you actually put a human in the loop, and actually, which is really nice. So the first thing is highly repetitive tasks. Let's automate those, right? You know exactly what's going to happen, and that's where you get your first sets of advancements. And once you have that in place, you also go back and say, what are some massive volume tasks that are happening, things that you can't handle with human scale? And then you go back and figure, if something requires massive time to completion, then you're definitely going to apply a system or technology towards it. Now, the fourth one's interesting. That's where we test ourselves, because nodes of interaction basically mean how much can you multitask? We can probably do 3 things, 5 things, 7 things. Collectively, when we start doing it,
10.
I can't do 10. I just have really good serial processing. But the point being is, like, can we get to machines? What happens, right? So massive nodes of interaction, that's going to be placed when you have to connect lots of people across different systems, across massive value chains. Now you realize where the system plays a role. But complexity is an interesting thing. There are some things that we have to model in math because we can't handle that level of complexity. But there's a lot of things where the human judgment we can't model an algo against. And because you can't model an algo, that's where you insert that human in the loop. And then, of course, creativity. We're really good at making the rules, but we're really great at breaking the rules with the right incentives. And if you're in supply chain, you can watch supplier behavior. It's awesome. If you build something really poorly, oh, they will go all over it. And then the last piece is interesting. When there's physical presence, sometimes you want a human there. Right? Sometimes you actually want to automate because it's too dangerous. And that's some of the 7 steps we look at.
I think the interesting thing that we discussed this morning is the ability to actually capture and understand what's lower on that chart. That's human-driven decision, because they need, by definition, to be, they're situational, they haven't been mapped, yet we want to be able to capture and understand them better at scale. Because I believe there is a massive opportunity to identify best practices, to capture that tribal knowledge that everybody talks about, capturing the tribal knowledge, but how do you do it? The same way when we started, we think about how we don't capture decisions. No. The essence of Aera was thinking we're developing and deploying very smart analytics and modeling tool and collaboration platform, yet we don't know when people are making a decision. So we came up with that concept of A/B testing, basically stealing it from Google. If I deliver a recommendation to you that has been computer generated and I capture your decision, I now have ability to memorize a decision. And I think we're taking that concept now and pushing it to unstructured, to situational decisions, and the unlocks. I mean, I'm excited because the unlocks we're going to see with that, we haven't started, are going to be, I think, amazing.
But you do more than A/B testing. You're doing A to X,
yeah,
right, in a way that we can't do at human scale. And I think that's the important part. And you said something much earlier during the presentation, during the keynote, was trust. Without that trust, with the machine and the human working together, you can't get there.
Exactly.
And so you've got to constantly test there. And that's why we tell people, regardless what business process you're in, across procure to pay, order to cash, when you do it in hire to retire, you're going to ask these 4 questions. And the first one is, when do you trust full intelligent decision automation? And there's going to be a lot of cases where it works. It makes a lot of sense. But then the next level of questions, where you start filtering out which processes you apply your skills to, is where do you augment the decision and decision intelligence with a human, right? And that's back to the accuracy, because 90% might be good enough, but then that's when we insert a human. You might not get to 100% accuracy, and that's okay, but that means you've accomplished so much on the decision automation side that you're finally there. Right? And over time, the system will get there, but each increment to get to the next level, it gets harder and harder because there's a lot of factors along the way. So for example, if I told you I have a digital physician and they are 87% accurate, how many people in this room would go for it? Raise your hands. Would you see my 80% accurate decision intelligence physician? Come on. Okay, I got one hand. Thank you. What if I told you your actual physician is only 83% accurate? How many people would see my physician now? And your 83% accuracy in the human physician, it's going to stagnate over time. They're not going to learn the best practices. They're not going to have the entire network to pull from. They're going to pull from that graph, right? So you can see over time it gets smarter, but you got to start somewhere, and that's, of course, we'll refine it. Now, in the meantime, what we can do is augment the human with decision automation intelligence, and then what that will do is actually allow them to actually work more quickly and get them to accelerate. And then once they get past there, we can then figure out, some cases, you just got to trust human judgment. That's not going to work any other way.
I'm smiling because we get so many discussions over the years when we're talking about the concept of digitizing decisions, where people say, "Well, what if the decisioning is wrong?" And I had it
That's awesome. I want it to be wrong
so that you
because
can
we
learn
learned from it. Yeah, exactly.
But the point I was going to make is not even that. Is we were presenting to the executive committee of a beverage company about a year ago, and everybody was very excited about what if it makes a wrong decision. And the person in charge, CEO, said, "Well, we make tens of thousands of decisions every day, and we just don't know if they're right or wrong. So what if we started learning from those?" And that's exactly the point you're making here. So Ray, moving the conversation forward, there's a big vision for AI and decision intelligence. So curious to get your vision and where is this going? What's the end game for that?
I want to start with something and say it in a different way, is all the stuff we were doing up until about last year was part of the internet age. Whether it was digital or 5G or IoT or mobile or the cloud, that was the age. With about a year in time, we have a demarcation. We are now in the age of AI and the age of decisions. And the change is different. Back in the other era, things were open, they were cheaper, they were decentralized, and there were a lot of players. And something shifted along the way here, where it is now closed, centralized, more expensive, and only a few players will win. And the reason for that is because of the data. The data sitting inside is really the differential. It's the advantage. And if you can't harness and access your data, you don't get to play. And the data you have is worth something so valuable that everybody wants to get to it. So what you're going to learn to do across the way, and this is with part in data collectives, is we're going to be able to give, get, trade for data. Think about your value chain, and retail, manufacturing, and distribution, you're going to create your new value chains for data. And when you do that, then we're going to see this vision where we've done the augmentation along the way, and that's going to be important. We are now going to figure out what we have to do to accelerate the process. And when you hit automation, that's when you're going to need all that data. That's when all the signals have to come into place, because you can't do anything without more information and insights. And that's where we see when we go to agents and the skills, their continuous learning capabilities going to be dependent on how well you can pull all that information and insight today. Now, today, we're just like, oh, silos, it's sitting in ERP 1 and ERP 3 and this other ERP over here. Oh no, in the future it's going to be customer sentiment data, economic information, commodities trading information and insight. That's all going to pull in at the same time, and then we can get to that point where the agents get smarter, and we ultimately get to a point where advisors are delivering on situational awareness.
But when you talk about the data, there's one data that is absolutely critical to us, is the decision data.
Yes.
If you don't capture the decision data, if you don't understand, memorize the decisions that are being made across your value chain, then the ability to extract value from the underlying transactional, even harmonized data is limited.
Yes.
You need to capture that tribal knowledge, and the only way I think we have to play with today is to capture those decisions, which is the whole theme about this morning's discussion.
This is why we actually believe in this slide, which I think I texted it to you. I said it's not ready, and it's still
I think
not
you
ready.
stole it from me, but that's okay.
I wasn't talking
you
to you.
Steal it from me? Okay, no, all
But
right,
you could be the godfather of decision intelligence here. So here's the situation. We're taking all our systems, these transactional systems, we're like, give me all the data. Then we're like, what's up with the processes? Then, okay, let's abstract and orchestrate processes. And then what we want to do is serve up UX and EX. Like, here's the UX, here's the experience. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's digital. It stinks in your transactional system. It really does. They weren't designed for any level of engagement, let alone experiences, let alone a level of intelligence. And that's why that's not happening. And so we've tried all these things along the way to get there, but once you get to intelligent orchestration services, which we were talking about 7 years ago, ambient orchestration, which was happening in the background, then we can get to the real game, which is decision automation. Our goal here really is decision automation, decision intelligence, because what we want to be able to do is personalization without thinking about it. We want to deliver on AI without thinking about it. We want situational awareness to occur. These are things that we're hoping, and ultimately these decision engines get smarter over time. And so this is the foundation for what we're about to get to in this age of AI and age of decisions, because the internet age doesn't operate this way. It's never going to operate that. We're going to build on top of it, but we are really in a new era. Oh, sorry about that. Nice pun, actually.
That's a good one. That's Aera.
Not that you've ever used that.
Aera is a new era. So there you go. That's how we. That's actually true. So you had this discussion, you and I, the other day around technical debt and how that framework actually helps resolve some of that problem. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I would actually say all that stuff on that bottom layer, that's where you want to cut your budget. You want to relegate that to a transactional system, put it into maintenance. I mean, look, honestly, I'm going to say something that will probably get me in trouble, and since it's live TV, it's more fun. If you're running a legacy ERP system, put it on maintenance. Stop paying the vendor. They're never going to get to the cloud in time. They're never going to get to AI in time. A lot of these folks won't make it. And in fact, you want to free yourself and create an abstraction layer from the transactional system, the process layer, free yourself from that, and free yourself and figure out what you want to do on the UX level. Take that money and put it to better use.
That was pretty radical. I like it.
That's why I get in trouble all the time.
You're not getting
We
in
tell our
trouble.
clients what we think. But
Right,
yeah.
this is awesome. Any last thoughts before we wrap up? I mean, you've said a lot this morning. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
partner. Learn from each other. I think that's the most important part. When you're at an event like this, people are doing different things. You know, you don't have to talk to your competitors. Talk to someone in a different industry, and that'll just blow your mind because it's the same set of problems, but more importantly, they're approaching it in a way you would not have thought about it. Everybody in this room is probably an expert at what they do. It's a question of what does it look like in another industry, and then where can you connect on the value chains? That's probably the most important thing you'll get out of this.
Right, I can speak with you for hours. Actually, I like doing that. You're the busiest man in the planet, so, or at least in our industry. So thanks for stopping by, taking a few minutes with us. Really appreciate. Love your insights, love your energy, and I think you are one of the smartest guys I know in the industry.
Oh,
so
no, not
thank
at
you
all.
for being
Thank
here.
you very much. Appreciate it.